After starting the war on Wednesday, he suddenly called it off, saying peace was imminent. And Iran. He said Iran's top leadership had approved it, but what Iran says is a completely different story. So the gap between the two sides is really quite huge. So what exactly is going on? Trump says a peace deal is coming soon, but the other side says no. So this gap is so big, it's getting a bit super weird. So this whole news story can really be called a series of twists and turns. The most obvious question is Trump's word reliable? Today, this news, the first part of the news story, might provide an answer to that, regarding how Trump considers issues and whether this Iran peace deal is actually reliable. Okay, and another thing is Elon Musk's SpaceX is supposed to go public today. The market is open now, and the NASDAQ in New York has been open for 2.5 hours. But right now, SpaceX's stock price hasn't moved a single cent. So what's really going on? I'll give you an explanation today. Will its IPO go smoothly? Will it skyrocket? Okay, welcome to listen to and watch Good Morning America, brought to you by Feng Wei. Hello to our YouTube viewers and hello to our listeners on Sound of Hope Silicon Valley FM 961. All right, let's start with the first major news story. Let's go back a day and a half. On Wednesday, U.S. Central Command launched strikes against multiple targets inside Iran. And the targets, there were at least 7 or more, and the scale of the strikes was quite significant. Meanwhile, Iran immediately announced, they said they launched a 3-hour missile attack, striking the Israeli capital Tel Aviv, as well as Jerusalem and Haifa, and also what's called Erbil, U.S. military targets, and the U.S. Fifth Fleet base in Bahrain. So the two sides basically started fighting. Then, by Thursday afternoon, Actually, at noon, Trump suddenly canceled all the strikes. Then at 1:38 in the afternoon, Trump posted on his social media, Truth Social, saying, I'll read the original text now. Trump said, based on discussions with Iran, which have been elevated to the highest level in Iran and approved, I, as President of the United States, have canceled the strikes and bombing operations against Iran scheduled for tonight. And the final requirements of this agreement have all been approved by all relevant parties, including the United States, Israel, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Turkey, Pakistan, Bahrain, Kuwait, Jordan, Egypt, and other parties. Wow. President Trump went on to say that the naval blockade will remain fully in effect until the deal is finalized. The time and location of the signing will be announced soon. Then on Thursday, because there was still half a day left on Thursday, Trump said at the White House, he said, we'll be signing very soon, and said once the deal is finally signed, the Strait of Hormuz will be reopened. And Trump said, this is a great thing, see? The stock market has already gone up 1,000 points, which shows the market likes this kind of deal. This is referring to Thursday afternoons. A few hours of the stock market surge and the sharp drop in oil prices. Trump also said that a high-ranking Iranian official called him directly, asking Trump to stop the U.S. bombing operations. This communication is also seen as a rare direct contact between Trump and the Iranian leadership. All right, and then President Trump went on to say that this agreement, which currently exists as a memorandum of understanding, under this agreement, Iran has agreed not to develop or purchase nuclear weapons, so they won't build them. Or buy them. Trump said that this nuclear issue is the core objective of this administration's pressure campaign against Iran. Trump even mentioned the signing ceremony for the agreement. Trump said the agreement might be held in Europe, and White House officials, that is, sources, told Reuters that the agreement could be signed this Sunday, and the location for the signing is Geneva, Europe, which is a potential venue for the signing of this agreement. So Trump said that Trump even said he wouldn't attend the signing ceremony himself, but would send Vice President Vance to attend. My goodness, it's already gotten this specific. But what does Iran say? Iran says they haven't confirmed any such agreement. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson, Bagai, said 2 things, and those 2 things are somewhat in conflict with each other. First, the text of the agreement to end the conflict with the United States has been mostly finalized. The problem that arose is that contradictions in the United States' position have caused turbulence in this process. Then he added another statement saying that reports about reaching a final agreement with the United States are pure speculation, and stated that Tehran has not yet made a final decision on any agreement. You see, this completely conflicts with what Trump said earlier. Now, let's also look at the Israeli president, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, who said that Israel is not a signatory to the agreement, but welcomes President Trump's position on any final agreement. He said he's grateful for President Trump's commitment that the final agreement will include the removal of nuclear enrichment materials, the dismantling of nuclear enrichment, what's called infrastructure, limits on Iran's missile production, and an end to Iran's support for terrorist proxies in the region. Netanyahu said that Israel is currently staying out of the negotiations, but is closely monitoring developments. Netanyahu went on to say, he said, "For over 30 years, I have been at the international forefront of opposing Iran's nuclear program. Without our struggle, Iran would have long ago possessed nuclear weapons to what's called destroy Israel." Netanyahu said that Iran is committed to destroying the Jewish state, which is his country, and I have dedicated my life to preventing them from doing so. As long as I am the Prime Minister of Israel, this will not happen. Let me translate for Netanyahu. What he means is, first, what Israel wants, we still insist on. Besides nuclear weapons, there are also ballistic missiles and restrictions on proxies. These are the four major United States goals that Trump mentioned when the war began on February 28th. The other two goals are, what were they? One is the Navy, to take out Iran's Navy, and then there's what's called, Netanyahu mentioned three things: nuclear weapons, missiles, and proxies. But now the United States has clearly backed off on missiles and proxies, so Netanyahu is bringing them up again. Right. So he emphasized what Israel wants once again. Second, the second sentence is even more critical, meaning that we cannot stop President Trump from doing whatever he wants to do, but we are not bound by this agreement. Meaning we'll still fight if we have to. So the key issue is right here. What exactly is the agreement? This whole thing is really, really dramatic because on Friday morning, the Iranian state news agency, the official one, the state news agency called MER, released the full text of the proposed 14-point framework agreement between Iran and the United States. It's out. Let me read it for you. But I won't read all 14 points because that would take too much time. I'll summarize a bit, but nothing essential will be missed. Iran says, first, immediately, a total cessation of war on all fronts, including Lebanon, meaning even Hezbollah can't fight anymore. The United States promises to respect Iran's sovereignty, meaning the U.S. won't attack us again. That's the first point. The second point, a complete lifting of the maritime blockade within 30 days. Resuming operations in the Strait of Hormuz within 30 days. What does that mean? It means both sides will unlock each other within 30 days. I won't choke the Strait of Hormuz, and you don't choke me. And then moving on, the third point, the next one, is the U.S. promises to withdraw troops from territories surrounding Iran. Who knows what that means? And then the next point is called suspension. Listen carefully. Suspension. The U.S. suspends oil sanctions and allows Iran full access to its financial resources, meaning financial and oil sanctions are all lifted. The United States and its allies must propose an Iranian reconstruction plan of at least $300 billion. Okay, listen further, hold negotiations within 60 days to reach a final agreement on the nuclear issue and fully lift all sanctions as well as resolutions from the UN Security Council and the International, it's called Atomic Energy Agency's Board of Governors. What does that mean? It means continuing to talk for another 60 days to reach a nuclear outcome. Then what? It goes on to say, confirming Iran's compliance with the Non-Proliferation Treaty and its renunciation of nuclear weapons production. That's the key point Trump wants. Further down, within the final 60-day negotiation period, $24 billion of Iranian assets will be unfrozen, half of which must be provided to Iran before the negotiations begin. Meaning before the talks even start, before the 60 days even begin, you have to give us half $12 billion in assets. Okay, and the next point is that final negotiations will only begin after half of Iran's assets are unfrozen. That's $12 billion. Oil sanctions are suspended, no oil sanctions, and the maritime blockade is lifted. So even though there are 60 days to negotiate the nuclear issue, before the negotiations start, you must first give us $12 billion, lift the oil sanctions, and lift the maritime blockade before we start talking. I told you all before, I said if the two sides could reach any agreement, I'd boil it down to two sentences. It would definitely be two sentences. The first is mutual lifting of the Strait blockade, and the second is everything else will be discussed within 60 days. That was my original assessment. So following this super simplified version, let me break down Iran's 14 points for everyone. Basically, it means both sides lift their blockades on each other. Yes, exactly as I mentioned. Then the United States halts oil sanctions and gives Iran $12 billion. Then they talk for another 60 days, and then the United States promises $300 billion for Iran's reconstruction. Really? Is that true? Is that even possible? If that's the case, then that really is. That would mean the U.S. is making a massive concession, a huge concession by President Trump. But what happened? Trump, about an hour and a half ago, Trump specifically posted a tweet. He personally tweeted, because Trump's last tweet was 22 hours ago, but an hour and a half ago, Trump posted on Truth Social. He commented directly on those 14 points revealed by the Iranian state news agency. Just a direct critique. What did Trump say? Trump said those terms Iran leaked to the fake news have absolutely nothing to do with the terms we agreed to in writing. What they're saying, including that weak and pathetic statement of theirs about reaching a deal, is completely inconsistent with the truth. These are a group of very dishonest people. In dealing with them, there is no such thing as good faith. Yes, the English term is goodwill. You could say good faith, or you could say sincerity. There's simply no such thing as sincerity in this matter. It's astonishing. What Trump said is quite reliable. In the next sentence, Trump said, additionally, the drone attack they launched last night against an Indian vessel leaving the Strait of Hormuz was completely repelled. The U.S. military shot down 2 of those Iranian drones yesterday. Because the U.S. military is still providing escorts late into the night, Trump said this is completely unacceptable. They'd better behave themselves and do it quickly. Okay, so then what? You see, hearing this, are our viewers as completely confused as Feng Wei is? Because the latest situation is that, on one hand, the Trump team is prepared to fly to Geneva this weekend to attend a signing ceremony for the deal with Iran. Iran says there is absolutely no deal to be signed. This is a misunderstanding of the U.S. proposal and intentions. Isn't that a bit of a huge gag? This isn't a small misunderstanding. I saw an influencer online who made a comment. I'll read his exact words. He's a major influencer with millions of followers, a Westerner too. He said, either the Trump administration is intentionally leaking optimistic info to pressure Iran into a faster deal, or the Trump administration truly believes the deal is closer than it actually is. He said, but Khamenei has not approved this deal, nor has he scheduled a signing time. So this makes the party showing an urgent desire for a deal. Does that mean the U.S.? Look very bad. The U.S. image is quite poor. What do you think of this comment? Based on all the news information Feng Wei has given you so far, I think his point... This comment's quite reasonable, isn't it? This is not just strange, it's bizarre. Not just bizarre, but the image is very poor. So General Flynn, Trump's first national security advisor, General Flynn, wrote a long tweet specifically tagging Trump in key decision makers at the White House. He said that if this continues, it'll hurt the U.S. president's reputation too much. The war has become a total fog. He said you can't do this anymore. Basically, if I simplify General Flynn's tweet into one sentence, it's you can't keep going on like this. Isn't it a total mystery by now? Whether the Trump administration is reliable or not has become this kind of thing, right? Do you all feel the same way? Okay, and then there's a twist. It turns out another big influencer, this guy actually works in AI. I don't know if his source is reliable, but what he said is very interesting, and it seems quite reliable. He said, I spoke with a senior White House official who called me. He said, I trust him 100%. So, the White House official told him what the deal is really about. This just came out about 45 minutes ago, and it's already spreading all over the internet. While this White House official said this, he said there's a big difference between what Iranian officials are claiming publicly and the content of the deal the U.S. has. Of course that goes without saying. Everyone knows that. But what is the real U.S. deal, or what is the deal the U.S. says both sides agree to? The real conditions are mainly 3 points. First, no direct money was given to Iran. There are rumors that the U.S. will release a large amount of funds to Iran. Didn't I just say, first $12 billion, then $300 billion, right? But this official said there's no so-called giving money. Some of the frozen funds, we will unfreeze them, but they can only be used to buy food, medicine, and other humanitarian supplies. Every expenditure must be approved by the U.S. In other words, this $12 billion might be unfrozen and given to Iran, but not as cash. Iran, if you want to buy food or medicine, we have to see what you're buying. We only let you buy things and then give you the goods. Only the goods go through our blockades to you. You can't take this money to build missiles, buy weapons, or build nuclear weapons. That's the idea. That's the first point. In other words, the US isn't giving money up front. It's a slow negotiation. Then, as Iran completes every step of the deal, especially every concession on nuclear weapons, they get the corresponding reward. It's like delivery first, payment later. That's what it means. The second point. Iran cannot keep enriched uranium. Iran claims they can continue to keep some enriched uranium. It's off and on. Iran keeps emphasizing this. But our US requirement isn't that you can keep 60% enrichment. It's not whether your uranium has 60% concentration or 20% or 3.67%. All of it must be shipped out of Iran or diluted so it can't be used for nuclear weapons at all. And what the US is pursuing is zero enriched inventory, not allowing Iran to keep any nuclear material. After all this is verified, the US will release funds or release what's called, release funds. This funding is likely in the form of goods, not cash. Third, sanctions won't be lifted on a large scale. The US will only temporarily open a 60-day window for oil exports. During these 60 days, oil sanctions can be lifted to let you export, allowing Iran to sell oil in a limited way during this period. If no agreement is reached within 60 days, the concessions will be immediately revoked, and sanctions will be restored to their original state. Okay, so in a nutshell, the US isn't giving Iran benefits first, but rather requiring Iran to make substantive concessions first. And Iran can't just say they'll give up all their nuclear weapons at once, right? Iran will only make small concessions, so if you take small steps, we'll give you small rewards. Okay, ultimately, without full nuclear concessions, there's no funding and no long-term lifting of sanctions. In other words, to put it more simply, what the US is giving Iran isn't a huge reward for a huge promise. It's not giving a huge reward up front. Instead, everything is broken into pieces, like earning rewards based on a report card. You get paid based on how much you achieve. If you don't deliver, everything stays as it was. Does this make sense to everyone? Of course, this influencer is indeed one with nearly 1 million followers, because influencers with nearly 1 million followers are usually, generally speaking, it's true that if you don't have credibility, your following won't grow that large. So he says the information he got from the White House is 100% accurate. What I just said is currently going viral online. So if this information is correct, then this explains Trump's negotiation strategy. So why has he remained so confident? The outside world really couldn't understand it. Even, do you remember, Pompeo was very, very anxious and even tweeted saying, "Trump, you can't do this," and so on. Then he was blasted by Trump's senior White House aide, Stephen Chang, that Chinese American who told him to just shut up, used profanity, and said to leave it to the professionals. Saying, "We are the professionals." So at the time, it was actually quite confusing. What did that mean? You see, what kind of professionals? Pompeo was worried that Trump was being tricked by Iran, so he posted a very concerned tweet. Then Stephen Chung said, "Shut up and leave it to the professionals." Obviously, if the White House said that, there must be some professional tactics involved, right? Very sophisticated tactics. Otherwise, why would they blast a former Secretary of State like that? So having said all this, what I'm saying now, I'm telling you, it might just be the case. What is Trump's approach? You think Trump is completely unaware of Iran's evil? That's probably not it. But Iran promised to get rid of nuclear weapons. Will they actually do it? I don't think they will. So Trump just broke the goal into small pieces. You do a little, I give you a little. If you don't, I stop immediately. I'll stop giving right away or restore everything instantly. The money already given can't be taken back. But clearly he won't give cash. He only gives supplies. What do you need money for? I'll only let you use it for humanitarian aid. You say you need medicine, then I'll help you order it and our Navy will watch the ships. Only then will you get the medicine, not the money. That's the idea. So can such a negotiated agreement be reached? Now, I'll give my commentary. If this is a test, no one knows. Right now, between complete trust in Iran and complete distrust, Trump has found a middle ground. Whether it will work, I don't know. This really is something only Trump could come up with. The art of the deal. Trump also said recently, he said, "Don't worry, everyone be at ease," or as they say in Taiwan, "Everyone be at ease, don't you worry about it, just let me handle it, and everything will be negotiated well in the end." If this approach works, if things are indeed like this and it really works, then I think that is indeed an original idea of President Trump's and one of his achievements. If, because of this, the so-called Iran war ends, U.S. gas prices will really, I think within 1 or 2 months, not within a week, but within a month, they will drop significantly. The gas station at my doorstep, $4.50, will become $2.60. I can't say $2.40. By November, it might become $2.40. So that would be an achievement for America and also a blessing for the world, a piece of good fortune for the world. So all we can say now is, perhaps we've seen President Trump's creativity, but can it be achieved? We'll just have to wait and see. And then, within the past 20 minutes, just before my show started, I told my director to quickly update the content. What's the situation? Iranian Foreign Minister Arakchi just released a so-called carefully worded statement. The statement said, "The Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding," that's in Pakistan, the middleman, the intermediary country, the capital of that, the Memorandum of Understanding, coordinated with Pakistan's help, have never been closer. And then the next sentence says, "Before the finalization, do not make any speculations about the details. They are very close, but have not yet been fully reached." Okay, those are his words. So hearing this story up to this point, don't you all feel like this whole thing is like a news story with many twists and turns? So all of this finally comes down to this thing called meticulous management, or in English, it's also called transactional diplomacy, doing one deal at a time. If it's not finished, you give as much as is done. If it's not finished, stop immediately, doing one deal at a time, transactional diplomacy by a world so-called. Can a leader of the free world manage the relationship with an evil regime and achieve it this way? This is a huge question. Of course, I sincerely wish that President Trump's strategy can succeed. If it can succeed, then that would be a creative solution. It would be really good for the world, and it would also create a way to manage this evil regime. So let's ask our audience friends. Y'all, let's do a vote of confidence for President Trump, shall we? Having said all this, if everything I said before is true, and I personally feel it's probably true, how much confidence do you have in President Trump finally achieving his goal? Do you have confidence in him or not? Let's do a poll, shall we? Okay, all in all, it's really every day is full of ups and downs. So what will the future hold? We'll just wait and see. In fact, there will be results by Sunday. All right, let's talk about this. Yesterday, after President Trump canceled the planned strike against Iran, international oil prices immediately dropped in response. This Brent crude oil is. The one from the British North Sea, which is the crude oil price that marks international oil prices, it drops from $95 per barrel to around $89. Then, as the benchmark for domestic oil prices in the United States, West Texas Intermediate crude, WTI, it's called WTI, Western Texas, it also fell by 3% yesterday. So stabilizing oil prices will certainly give American drivers a breather as the summer driving season approaches. Americans love to travel in the summer, So as of June 11th, oil prices across the United States, gas prices, have been falling for 3 weeks on average, dropping to $4.13 per gallon. That's the national average, right? Every city and region is different, of course. So what does that mean? 413 means it's down 39 cents from a month ago, a drop of 39 cents, which is a decrease of nearly 9%, roughly. So it's still good news. Of course, if there's a ceasefire, prices would plummet immediately. Okay, so that's what we're all hoping for. Also, in May of this year, OPEC, the organization of the petroleum exporting countries, mainly that Middle Eastern group, OPEC, they released a report saying OPEC's average daily crude oil production was 33 million barrels, down 200,000 barrels from last month. And what's the reason for the decline? Well, as you might expect, it's a sharp drop in Iran's crude oil production. Iran's production fell by 30% compared to the same period last year. I don't quite understand this number, actually. I saw the news and just wanted to report it to you all. It's from the OPEC crude oil report. How could Iran's production only drop 30% from last year? Shouldn't it be down 83% or 93%? Anyway, let's not dwell on that. Also, the next news is that Venezuela's daily production in May was 1.07 million barrels. What does that mean? It's 140,000 barrels higher than the same period last year. Okay, so that's a 14% increase. Venezuela is rising significantly. Venezuela's oil reserves are 300 billion barrels, okay, which is 20% of the world's total oil reserves. Number one in the world. So after the United States took down Venezuela, or more accurately, after taking down Maduro, things in Venezuela have been improving across the board. That's the situation. In addition, most OPEC member countries were increasing production in May. That's understandable, right? With Iran slowing down, others are ramping up. Iraq is increasing production, Kuwait is too. So basically, crude oil production is surging. If the war ends, oil prices will really plummet. And they'll drop even lower than before. The global market will be booming. Of course, all of this depends on whether Trump's negotiation strategy with Iran can be successful. Let's just wait and see. We'll wait for the results to emerge, okay? Sunday isn't far off. What will the outcome be? Just a reminder, everyone, let's do a poll. Please answer the poll. Cast a vote of confidence on Trump's strategy. Do you believe he can succeed, or do you have some reservations, okay?